Panie i panowie, witam, tu kapitan. To jest paralela Stanleya. Wiedziałem, że zacznie mi się język plątać. Nigdy nie grałem w tą grę. Widzicie, że mam, zobaczcie, incepcję, normalnie okręt w ekranie. Nigdy nie grałem w tą grę, wiele o niej słyszałem, więc chciałem zobaczyć, o co chodzi. Wiele zakończeń i jest taka
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on the keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day, of every month, of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-ending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk.
Opcji nie ma napisów. Grafika, dźwięk. Napisy, okej.
And stepped out of his office.
Czyli mieliśmy intro. Lektor powiedział nam, że Stanley pracował sobie w tej firmie. Każdego dnia, każdego roku przychodził do tego biura, wciskał klawisze, wykonywał komendy, które miał pokazane, które były wyświetlone na tym monitorze. I tak biegło jego życie, był szczęśliwy, nic się złego nie działo. Przychodził do pracy, wracał do domu, robił dalej swoje, aż nagle któregoś dnia monitor nie pokazywał mu komend, przestał wydawać mu polecenia i coś się zmieniło, bo wszyscy jego koledzy zniknęli. No i wstał Stanley od biurka i teraz gramy, żeby zobaczyć, o co chodzi. Okej.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
Okej. Zostaliśmy w biurze.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself,
Dziwne.
is to wait.
Okej.
Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me.
Dziwne. Okej, dobra, nie zostajemy w biurze. Czy to było jedno z zakończeń? Okej, gra się skończyła. Moglibyśmy zostać w... Jak gdzie to było? Far Cry bodajże 4 miał taką opcję, że moglibyśmy zakończyć grę na samym początku. Nie będę mówił więcej, żeby nie zdradzać szczegółów, ale gdyby ktoś może jeszcze nie grał na przykład w Far Cry'a. Ale ciekawe, podoba mi się. Pozamykane.
Already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life.
Okej, nic tu nie ma w innych stanowiskach. Czy coś mamy? Nie. The end is never the end, czyli koniec nigdy nie jest końcem. To samo, co mieliśmy napisane podczas ładowania. Ciekawe. Na kubku. Who farted? Kto pierdnął? Napisane jest na kubku. Zagadka. Keep try. Input received. Naciśnij klawisz.
Stanley clicked on literally every single door in the office because he doesn't pick up well on cues from his environment.
Okej. Czyli musimy podążać z otwartymi drzwiami. Jeśli drzwi są zamknięte, to nie możemy ich otworzyć. Gra właśnie to skomentowała, że kliknąłem na wszystkie drzwi w swojej drodze. Ciekawe. A normalnie nie gram w tego typu gier, tego typu gry, tego gatunku. Ale tak mówię, zawsze chciałem zagrać w tą grę, bo wiele o niej słyszałem, więc to też zrobimy. Nie wiem, jak długo potrwa to wideo. Może
Stanley came to a set of two open doors. He entered the door on his left.
Czyli gra mówi nam, żebyśmy szli do drzwi po lewej. Pójdziemy drzwi po prawej.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Jeżeli zobaczycie coś, co ja przeoczyłem, jakiś detal, dajcie mi znać, jestem ciekawy. Może graliście sami w tę grę i znacie już kilka innych zakończeń, kilka innych wersji tego, co się tu wydarzy. Napiszcie.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. Yes, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
#1 D&D. D&D, czyli Dungeons and Dragons.
At this point, Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on creepy and reflected poorly on his overall personality. It's possible that this is why everyone left.
Spróbuję zostać jeszcze chwilę dłużej. Coffee.
Stanley sat around waiting for more dialogue, but when a long time had passed and there was no more, he decided that the game was trying to send him a message.
Okej, doceniam to, okej.
But at last, he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business.
Pierwszy po lewej, tak? Pójdziemy prosto.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
troszeczkę half-life'owy klimat taki. Uwaga. There you are. Przestań kłamać, nie kłam. Jeśli kłamiesz w tej chwili, przestań. O, dziwne ostrzeżenie. Jakiś sztyce. Nie skacz. Nie skacz z ładunku. Do not jump from the cargo. Lift while. A nie skacz z windy, kiedy się porusza. Ryzyko śmierci. 5000 kara za zaskoczenie. Wow, ale wysoko. No okej.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance.
Doceniam tę grę. Im dłużej gram, tym bardziej doceniam tę grę.
Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door.
A, czyli teraz może pomyśli, że jeszcze przeszedł przez czerwone, pójdziemy przez niebieskie, ale pójdziemy przez czerwone, tak? Spróbujemy.
Oh, thank God you are willing to listen to me. Do you see that I really have wanted you to be happy all this time? The problem is all these choices. The two of us always trying to get somewhere that isn't here. Running and running and running,
Co?
just the way you're doing right now. Don't you see that it's killing us, Stanley? I wanted to stop. We would both be so much happier if we just stopped.
Okay.
And I think I have a solution. Here, let me show you.
Nic nie ma, spadaj. Co? No dobra. Koniec?
What do we want? What are we looking for?
O co chodzi?
Here. Yes. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? If we just stay right here, right in this moment with this place, Stanley, I think I feel happy. I actually feel happy. No, wait. Where are you going? Oh no. Stay away from those stairs. If you hurt yourself, if you die, the game will reset. We'll lose all of this. Please, no, Stanley, let me stay here. Don't take this from me.
A, jeżeli zginę, gra się zresetuje, okej.
Please, Stanley, think about what you're doing. No! Oh, thank God you lived. You had me worried there for a moment. No, what are you doing, Stanley? Please, I'm asking you not to take this away from me. I can't go back to what I was before. If you die, we'll both go back. Why are you doing this?
Czekaj, spróbujemy teraz trzymać się drogi. Jeżeli teraz zginę... Nie?
Stanley, let's go back to the other room. Can you do that for me? My God, is this really how much you dislike my game? That you'll throw yourself from this platform over and over to be rid of it? You are literally willing to kill yourself to keep me from being happy. Am I reading the situation correctly?
Chyba nie możemy
Maybe
zbierać.
you're just getting a kick out of it. And do you actually want to stay alive? Or are you just teasing me? I wanted us to be happy here, Stanley.
Czekajmy tutaj, zobaczmy o co chodzi.
I
Co się
wish
stanie?
I still thought that was possible.
To wszystko? Nie mogę zaskoczyć, nie mogę zejść w dół. Tu jest taka niewidzialna ściana tutaj. Co za gra? Czekajcie, mogę po schody wejść gdzieś? Co za dziwadło z tej gry. Czy doszliśmy do jakiegoś punktu, którego nie ma wyjścia, czy mi się wydaje? Jeszcze raz.
Is it over? It's going to restart, isn't it? I'm going back.
Jesteśmy na początku, ale psychoza. Podoba mi się to. Dzwoni telefon.
Hello. This is a recorded message scheduled either by you or a person in your place of work. The purpose of this message is to warn you about the dangers of recorded messages. If at any time you believe you are listening to a recorded message, please terminate it immediately and cease all flow of information from the recorded message into your perceptual sphere. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.
Dla tych z was, którzy nie zrozumieli tego telefonu, pani po drugiej stronie słuchawki powiedziała nam, że jest to nagrana wiadomość, która ma nas ostrzec przed nagranymi wiadomościami. Jeżeli w przyszłości usłyszymy kiedyś wiadomość, która została nagrana i która nie mówi do nas, jeżeli to nie jest żywa osoba, która do nas mówi, tylko jest to nagrana wiadomość, mam natychmiast przestać jej słuchać, bo to nie jest dla nas nic dobrego. Słuchanie takich wiadomości. Niesamowite. Kubek spadł. Okej. Teraz nie ma rektora żadnego.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Dobra, weźmy po lewej. Tu was jeszcze nie było.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Jakieś wskazówki na tym stole są? Can't jump, no. Nie mogę skakać. Money. Cars. Na tej tablicy. Nieziemskie. Prezentacja. Chodźmy dalej.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here. It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA. Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused.
Podoba mi się, gra łamie tą trzecią ścianę, przychodzi nas zwracając to jako do gracza.
If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it.
Chodźmy dalej.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Idziemy na dół oczywiście. Nice. Tu nas jeszcze nie było.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, It's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Co za psychoza. Niesamowite. Niesamowite. To już trochę gramy. Spróbujemy na szybko jeszcze podążać historią. Historią Stanleya. Wysłucham teraz tego lektora naszego. Nie będziemy mu się sprzeciwiać. Chociaż powiem wam, niezłe. Niezłe.
Stanley came to a set of two open doors. He entered the door on his left.
Tak, po lewej. Czyli przechodzimy przez to biuro tutaj.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Okej, pójdziemy do szefa. Tu jest toaleta.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Ucieczka lub Centrum Kontroli Umysłu. Powiedzmy tutaj.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Gdzie znasz? Mieliśmy 427? 37? Nie pamiętam.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content, walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life, for he would dismantle the controls once and for all. And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for. Blackness, and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes! He had won! He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, It will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Niesamowita gra. O, jesteśmy gdzie indziej. Czy mi się wydaje? O cholera, jesteśmy gdzie indziej, zobaczcie. Wow, okej, dobra. Tym akcentem zakończymy ten epizod. Coś niesamowitego ta gra. Dla tych, którzy lubią takie klimaty. Będę się wyłączał. Dziękuję za wasz czas, jeżeli zostaliście ze mną do samego końca. Do zobaczenia, do usłyszenia. Trzymajcie się ciepło. Gdzieś kiedyś zobaczymy się tutaj na tym kanale. Na razie. Cześć.